Morning light spilled golden through the bakery windows, catching the flour dust dancing in the air like tiny stars. The scent of fresh bread wrapped around everything, warm, safe, ordinary. Kang Min-jae stood frozen in the doorway. He had searched for 3 years across 2 continents. Now, behind the counter stood a woman he never expected to see again. She smiled gently. Not at him. At 3 identical Korean children in matching Navy school uniforms. One child broke free and ran toward her. Mom. The word shattered something inside Min-jae's chest. His eyes tracked the children's faces. The sharp jawlines, the specific curve of their eyes, the distinctive set of their cheekbones. Features that belonged to his bloodline. Features that should not exist. His heart, already damaged, already failing, stopped completely. Without saying a single word. His entire world collapsed and rebuilt itself in the span of one breath. Please like, share and subscribe. The bakery was called Sunrise and Flower. A modest name for a modest place tucked into a quiet Seoul neighborhood, 3 blocks from the prestigious Hanbit International Elementary School. Parents passed through each morning, collecting pastries and coffee before dropping their children at the iron gates. Amara Adeyemi Park had owned this bakery for 5 years. She knew every regular by name. She knew which mothers preferred almond croissants and which fathers secretly bought extra chocolate bread for themselves. She knew the rhythm of this life. Safe, predictable, healing. What she did not know was that the man standing in her doorway had spent 3 years hunting for ghosts. And today he had found them. Min-jae's hand remained pressed against the glass door. His knuckles whitened. The dragon tattoo curling across his fingers seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. Each scale rendered in obsidian ink. Each claw sharp enough to cut. He did not move. He did not breathe. The 3 children clustered around the counter, their voices high and bright as they argued over which pastry to choose. I want the one with strawberries. You always want strawberries, Seun. Because strawberries are the best, Sumin. The 3rd child, quieter than the others, tugged at the woman's apron. Mom, he whispered. Someone is watching us. Amara looked up. Her smile remained customer-ready, warm. Then she saw him. The smile faltered. Not because she recognized him, she didn't. But because something in his stillness made the air feel different. Heavier. Charged. He was tall. Impossibly so. His black overcoat hung perfectly across broad shoulders. His jawline could have been carved from granite. His eyes, dark, piercing, cold, held an intensity that made her instinctively step closer to the children. And then she noticed the tattoo. It crawled up from his collar, disappearing beneath his jaw, scales and waves and flowers rendered in ink that seemed older than the man wearing it. Behind his left ear, barely visible, a crimson spider watched her with 8 perfect eyes. Can I help you? Amara asked. Her voice remained steady. Years of survival had taught her how to mask fear. Min-jae's gaze finally moved from the children to her face. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Recognition? No. Something deeper. Something that looked almost like pain. Coffee, he said. His voice was low. Controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need volume to command attention. Black. No sugar. Amara nodded and turned toward the espresso machine. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked. Behind her she heard the children whispering. He looks scary, Seun said. He's not scary, Sumin countered. He's just tall. The quiet one, Subin, said nothing. But when Amara glanced back, she found him staring at the stranger with an expression far too knowing for a 7-year-old. Min-jae had moved to a corner table. He sat with his back against the wall, a habit learned from 20 years of living in a world where assassination was a business expense. The morning light caught the ink on his hand as he reached for the coffee cup Amara brought. Their fingers almost touched. Almost. Thank you, he said. She nodded, stepping back quickly. Too quickly. He noticed. He noticed everything. Earlier that morning, Min-jae had woken at 4 a.m. in the penthouse suite of the Kang family tower, 63 floors above a city that belonged to his bloodline. The pain had been worse than usual. A tightness in his chest that made each breath feel like borrowing time. His physician's words echoed. 3 years. Perhaps 4. The condition is degenerative, and your refusal to slow down is accelerating the damage. 3 years. He had already used 2 of them searching. Searching for a woman who had vanished. Searching for answers about a brother who had died with secrets. searching for something he couldn't name. And now, sitting in a tiny bakery that smelled like warmth and cinnamon, he understood. He hadn't been searching for answers. He had been searching for them. The children finished their breakfast and gathered their school bags. Identical navy blazers. Identical backpacks. Identical faces that made Min Jae's damaged heart crack along fault lines he hadn't known existed. "Bye, Mom," they chorused. Amara kissed each forehead. "Study hard. Be kind. Come straight home." We know, Seon laughed. They tumbled out the door, a whirlwind of energy and innocence. Min Jae watched them through the window until they disappeared around the corner. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Amara collected empty cups and wiped tables. She could feel the stranger's eyes tracking her movements. It should have frightened her. Instead, it felt strangely familiar. Like being watched by someone who already knew her. "The children," he said suddenly. She froze. "What about them?" Pause. The kind of pause that held oceans. "They call you Mom." It wasn't a question. Amara straightened slowly. "Yes. Are they yours?" Now she turned. Met his eyes directly. In Nigeria, her mother had taught her that you never let a predator see your fear. "Why do you ask?" Min Jae set down his coffee cup. The dragon on his hand coiled toward his wrist, disappearing beneath the cuff of his shirt. "They have my family's face," he said quietly. The words hit Amara like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of the nearest table. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." He stood. 6 feet 2 inches of controlled power. "I think you knew my brother." The bakery fell silent. Even the espresso machine seemed to hold its breath. Amara's voice emerged barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" Min Jae reached into his coat and produced a single photograph. He placed it on the table between them. In the image, a young man smiled at the camera. He had softer features than the stranger before her, kinder eyes, a gentler jaw. But the resemblance was undeniable. "His name was Kang Min-ho," the stranger said. "He was my younger brother. He died 4 years ago." He paused. "And I believe those children are his." Amara's legs gave out. She caught herself on a chair, sinking into it before she could fall. The photograph stared up at her from the table. Min-ho's smile. The smile she had loved. The smile she had buried. "You're wrong," she whispered. But her voice broke on the lie. Min Jae did not move closer. He understood shock. He understood the way truth could shatter a person's foundations. He had felt it himself when the hospital called 4 years ago. Car accident. Massive internal trauma. We're sorry. His brother, bright, brilliant, rebellious Min-ho, gone in an instant. No warning. No goodbye. Just silence where laughter used to live. "My brother kept secrets," Min Jae said carefully. "From our father. From me. From everyone." He sat across from her, maintaining distance. Respecting the terror in her eyes. "I knew he had someone. He was happier in his final year than I had ever seen him. But he wouldn't tell me her name. Wouldn't show me a photograph." He said. Min Jae's jaw tightened. "He said he was protecting her. From our world." Amara pressed her palms against her eyes. Memories flooded back. Memories she had locked away in a vault inside her heart. Meeting Min-ho at a cultural exchange event. His terrible jokes. His wonderful kindness. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in any room. Their secret relationship. Their hidden love. His promise that he would tell his family. But soon never came. "I found out I was pregnant," Amara said softly. "The same week he died." Min Jae's stillness deepened. "I tried to contact his family. But every number I had was disconnected. Every address led nowhere. It was like he never existed." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know who you people were. I didn't know about your world. Min-ho kept all of that from me. He kept you safe," Min Jae thought. "He knew what our family was. He knew what knowing us would cost." Out loud he said nothing. Some truths required silence. "I came to Seoul because it was his home," Amara continued. "I thought maybe I could find answers. Find his family. Tell them about the children." She laughed bitterly. "Instead I found nothing. So I built a life. I raised them alone. I gave them everything I could." Her voice hardened. "They don't need you. They don't need your family. They have me." Min-jae studied her face. The protective fire in her eyes. The fierce love that burned through her grief. His brother had chosen well. I didn't come to take them, he said quietly. Then why are you here? A long pause. The morning light had shifted, casting shadows across the bakery floor. I came, Min-jae said slowly, because I'm dying. The words fell between them like stones dropped into still water. Amara's breath caught. What? My heart. He touched his chest briefly. A rare condition. Degenerative. I have perhaps 2 years left. Perhaps less. His voice remained calm. Clinical. As if he were discussing stock prices rather than his own mortality. Before I die, I want to know that my brother's children are protected. That they will never want for anything. That our family's enemies cannot touch them. Amara shook her head slowly. I don't understand. Enemies? Protection? What kind of family are you? Min-jae's hand moved unconsciously to his collar. The dragon tattoo peeked above the fabric, scales glinting. The kind that builds empires, he said. And destroys anyone who threatens them. Later that afternoon, the children returned from school with grass-stained knees and boundless energy. They burst into the bakery like 3 small hurricanes, demanding snacks and recounting their day in overlapping sentences. Min-jae had gone. But he had left something behind. A business card, stark white, embossed with a single name. Kang Min-gi. No title. No phone number. Only a handwritten note on the back. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The Han River observation deck. Please. Amara held the card while the children ate. Mom. Subin appeared at her elbow. Who was that man this morning? She forced a smile. Just a customer. The boy's knowing eyes studied her face. He looked sad, Subin said quietly. The same kind of sad you have sometimes. Amara pulled her son close, breathing in the scent of his hair. Sometimes, she whispered, people carry heavy things inside them. Like secrets. Yes. Like secrets. Subin nodded solemnly. Maybe he needs a friend, he said. Friends make heavy things lighter. Several hours later. Min-jae stood in his penthouse office, watching the city lights spread beneath him like a field of fallen stars. Behind him, his chief of security waited at attention. Well? Min-jae asked without turning. Amara Adiemi Park. Nigerian national. Arrived in South Korea 6 years ago on a work visa. Opened the bakery 5 years ago. No criminal record. No suspicious associations. No debts. Pause. Clean. Completely clean. Min-jae's reflection stared back at him from the dark glass. And the children? Registered as her biological offspring. Birth certificates list the father as unknown. Min-jae closed his eyes. Unknown. His brother, the brightest star in their constellation, reduced to an absence on government paperwork. Keep watching her, he said. Discreetly. I want to know if anyone else takes interest. Yes, sir. The security chief hesitated. Sir, does the chairman know? Min-jae's jaw tightened. The dragon tattoo seemed to coil tighter around his throat. My father knows nothing. And he will continue knowing nothing until I decide otherwise. Meanwhile, across the city in an equally impressive tower, Chairman Kang Deung sat in his private study. He was 73 years old. He had built the Kang Empire from the ground up. Legitimate businesses on the surface, darker enterprises beneath. He had buried one son. He had hardened the other. And he had spent 4 years searching for something his departed child had hidden. Today his own investigators had finally delivered results. A bakery, he murmured, examining the photographs spread across his desk. 3 children. A Nigerian woman. His weathered finger traced the faces of his unknown grandchildren. Minho, you foolish boy. You hid treasure from me. He pressed an intercom button. Summon my grandson. The legal team as well. Pause. It seems I have a legacy to secure. The Han River sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Joggers passed in colorful streams. Children laughed near the water's edge. Couples walked hand in hand along the observation deck. Amara arrived at exactly 3 p.m. She had left the children with Mrs. Kim, the elderly neighbor who helped with childcare. Just an errand, she had told them. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Min-jae waited near the railing. He wore a charcoal cashmere coat despite the mild weather, a habit developed to hide the monitoring patch his doctors insisted upon. The wind caught his collar, revealing the edge of the dragon's tail curling toward his jaw. He turned before she reached him, as if he had sensed her approach, as if he had been tracking her heartbeat. "You came," he said. "You asked." They stood 3 feet apart, close enough to hear each other, far enough to retreat. "Why the river?" Amar asked. Min-jae's gaze drifted toward the water. "Minho loved it here. When we were young, before our lives became complicated, we would skip stones and count cargo ships." A ghost of something, not quite a smile, crossed his features. "He always won. I could never understand how." Amar watched his profile. The sharp jaw, the controlled stillness, the tattoos that marked him as something dangerous. Yet his voice when he spoke of his brother became almost gentle, almost human. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "I want to explain." "Explain what?" "Everything." He faced her fully. "What our family is. Why Minho hid you. What happens now that I found you." They walked along the river as he spoke. The Kong family history unfolded like a dark tapestry. Generations of power, of legitimate businesses layered over shadow empires, of loyalty purchased with blood and enforced with fear. "Our grandfather built the foundation," Min-jae explained. "Our father expanded it. By the time Minho and I were born, we were already inheritors of a kingdom most people don't believe exists." "The mafia," Amara said flatly. "We prefer organization." "But yes." "And Minho was part of this?" "No." Min-jae's voice hardened slightly. "He refused. From the time he was 16, he made clear he wanted no part of our darker enterprises. He studied medicine, worked in humanitarian organizations, tried to build something clean from the dirty money that educated him." Amar absorbed this. It aligned with the man she had known. The man who volunteered at free clinics, who flinched at violence in films, who held her like she was precious rather than possessed. "Your father accepted this?" "Our father tolerated it. Because I was the heir. I would carry the weight." Minho refused. They stopped near a quiet bench overlooking the water. Amar sat. After a moment, Min-jae joined her. Their shoulders nearly touched. "When Minho died," he continued, "my father investigated everything. Searched his apartment. Tracked his movements for his final year. He found hints. Suggestions of a relationship. But nothing concrete. Minho was careful. Yes. Careful enough to hide you even in death." Amara's hands twisted in her lap. "He didn't tell me anything. About your family. About the danger. He just said he would handle things. That he would make space for us in his life. He was trying to protect you. By leaving me completely alone when he died?" The bitterness in her voice cut through the afternoon air. Min-jae had no answer. Several minutes later. "Your father," Amara said slowly. "Does he know about us?" Min-jae's silence was answer enough. "When he finds out." "He will not find out from me. But if he does, then I will protect you." Amara turned to face him fully. "Why? You don't know me. You don't know the children. Why would you risk anything for strangers?" Min-jae's dark eyes held something she couldn't name. "Because those children carry my brother's blood. Because my brother loved you enough to build walls around you. Because..." He stopped. The pause stretched. "Because I've spent 2 years dying alone," he said finally. "And before I go, I want to do something that matters. Something that isn't about power or control or empire." His hand moved unconsciously to his chest. "I want to protect something beautiful. Just once." The following week, Seon noticed him first. She had always been the most observant of the 3, despite her playful exterior. "Mom," she whispered during breakfast, "that man is outside again." Amara's hand tightened around her coffee cup. He didn't need to look. He knew. Min-jae had been appearing near the bakery for 7 consecutive days. Never entering. Never approaching. Just present. Watching. Protecting. Amara didn't know whether to feel comforted or terrified. "Is he a bad man?" Sumin asked, chewing his toast thoughtfully. "I don't think so," Subin said quietly. "Bad men don't stand in the rain." Amara blinked. It had rained 3 days ago. She hadn't noticed anyone standing outside. But Subin noticed everything. That afternoon after school the children made their move. Amara was preparing the evening pastries when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up and nearly dropped her mixing bowl. Suyun stood in the doorway, dragging Min-jae behind her by his tattooed hand. "Mom, we found him outside again, so we invited him in." Sumin followed, practically bouncing. He was just standing there looking lonely. It was sad. Subin brought up the rear, his knowing eyes moving between the adults with unsettling intelligence. Min-jae looked as close to uncomfortable as Amara suspected he ever got. "I apologize," he said stiffly. They were very insistent. "We told him he could have free bread," Suyun announced proudly. "You can't just give away our bread," Amara managed weakly. "But he's our friend now. Friends give each other bread." Later that evening, the children refused to let him leave. They peppered him with questions while he sat awkwardly in the small kitchen behind the bakery. "Do you have a dog?" "No." "Do you want one?" "I've never considered it." "You should get one. Dogs are great." Subin pulled a chair close and studied Min-jae's hand. "Your tattoo looks like a dragon," he said. "It is a dragon." "Why?" "Pause. Because dragons are strong," Min-jae said slowly. "And wise. And they protect what belongs to them." "What do you protect?" The question hung in the air. Amara watched from the doorway, afraid to interrupt. Min-jae's eyes met hers across the room. "I protect my family," he said quietly. "Whatever that means." That night, after the children were asleep, Amara found Min-jae still in the bakery. He sat at the same corner table from that first morning. His coffee had long since gone cold. "You're not going to stop, are you?" she asked. "Stop what?" "Watching. Waiting. Whatever this is." Min-jae looked up. In the dim light his features softened slightly. The severity remained, but something beneath it seemed almost vulnerable. "I can't stop," he admitted. "I tried. For 3 days I stayed away. I told myself you didn't want my presence. That I was intruding. And the thought of something happening to you while I wasn't there made it impossible to breathe." Amara sank into the chair across from him. "I don't understand you. That makes 2 of us." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. His present. "The children like you," Amara said finally. "Children often like dangerous things. You're not dangerous to them." His jaw tightened. "You don't know that. I know that you've spent a week standing outside my bakery in the cold because you're afraid to come inside uninvited. I know that when Suyun grabbed your hand today, you let her drag you even though you could have crushed her with a thought." Amara leaned forward. Dangerous men don't let themselves be pulled around by 7-year-olds. For the first time since she'd met him, something in Min-jae's expression cracked. It was small. Just a flicker. But she saw it. The loneliness beneath the control. The hunger for connection beneath the cold. "My brother was the warm one," he said roughly. "The kind one. I was always the blade our father sharpened. I don't know how to be gentle." "You're learning." "Am I?" Amara reached across the table. Her fingers hovered near his hand. Not quite touching. Offering. Waiting. Min-jae stared at her fingers like they might burn him. Then slowly he turned his palm upward. An invitation. A question. She placed her hand in his. The dragon tattoo curled around their joined fingers. His skin was warm. His grip was impossibly gentle. The grip of a man acutely aware of his own strength and terrified of using it wrongly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For letting me try." 3 weeks later, Chairman Kang Deung's car arrived at Hanbit International Elementary School precisely at dismissal time. He was not expected. He had not announced his visit. He preferred it that way. Surprises revealed truths that preparation concealed. The children emerged in their usual whirlwind. Suyun spotted the enormous black sedan first. "Look. A fancy car." Sumin pressed his face against the iron fence. "I bet that's a senator's car." Subin hung back watching. The rear door opened. An elderly man stepped out, supported by a golden-headed cane. Despite his age, power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. "Children," he said, and his voice carried across the schoolyard. "My name is Kang Deung. I believe I'm your grandfather." Meanwhile, Amara was arranging the display case when her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. She answered. "Hello." Mississippi Park. Min-jae's voice was tight, controlled. But something beneath it vibrated with barely contained fury. Where are the children? At school. Why? A pause that lasted a lifetime. My father knows. Amara's blood turned to ice. What? He knows about you. About them. He's been investigating for weeks. I just found out. Min-jae's breathing was harsh. Too harsh. I'm on my way to the school now. Stay where you are. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone inside until I call you. The line went dead. At the school, the children stood in a confused cluster while adults argued above them. The principal had emerged, flustered and uncertain. Security personnel in dark suits formed a perimeter. And the old man, their grandfather he claimed, watched them with eyes that calculated rather than loved. They're the image of my Minho, he murmured. Identical. Remarkable. Seoul, never one for silence, crossed her arms. We're not supposed to talk to strangers. I'm not a stranger, child. I'm family. Our mom says family is who you love, not who you're related to. Dae-young's smile was thin. Predatory. Your mother sounds unconventional. She's the best. Subin stepped in front of his siblings. 7 years old, small and slight, but his stance held an echo of someone else. Someone Dae-young recognized. You look like him, the old man breathed. Like Minho when he was young. I don't know any Minho, Subin said quietly. Please leave us alone. A second car screeched into the parking lot. Min-jae emerged before it fully stopped. His coat whipped behind him. The dragon tattoo blazed against his skin as fury sharpened every feature. Father. The single word cut through the chaos. Dae-young turned unperturbed. Min-jae. You've been hiding things from me. Protecting. Not hiding. From your own father? From the man who would treat these children as assets rather than family. The air between them crackled. Years of tension. Decades of power struggles. A lifetime of love corrupted by expectation. They're Kong blood, Dae-young said coolly. They belong with us. They belong where they're loved. Where they're safe. Safety is an illusion. Power is the only true protection. Min-jae stepped closer. The red spider behind his ear caught the light. A warning symbol known throughout the criminal underworld. Touch them, he said softly, and I will burn everything you've built. Every alliance. Every empire. Every fragment of legacy you cling to. Dae-young studied his son's face. The coldness there. The absolute commitment. You would destroy your inheritance for 3 children you've known a month? Without hesitation. The old man's smile returned. But this time, something else flickered in his ancient eyes. Something that might have been respect. We'll discuss this properly, he said. At the family estate. Tomorrow evening. He turned and walked back to his car. At the door he paused. Bring the mother. If she has any sense she'll understand what I'm offering. The car departed. Min-jae knelt before the children. His massive frame folded down to their level. The tattoos that marked him as a killer brushed against the innocent fabric of their school uniforms. Are you okay? He asked. Soo-yoon nodded shakily. Sumin was crying silently. Subin simply stared. He wanted to take us away, the quiet boy said. From Mom. Min-jae's jaw tightened. No one, he said carefully, precisely, will ever take you from your mother. Not my father. Not anyone. I swear it. He pulled all 3 of them close. So impossibly gentle for hands that had done such terrible things. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Kang Min-jae felt something besides the pain in his chest. He felt purpose. That night, Amara was a storm contained in a small kitchen. She paced while Min-jae stood silent near the door. The children were asleep upstairs, exhausted by the day's terror. How dare he, she seethed. How dare he approach my children like their property to be claimed? That's how he sees everything. People are assets. Relationships are transactions. And you? What do you see them as? Min-jae's eyes met hers. Miracles, he said quietly. I see them as miracles. The word stopped her pacing. I spent years believing my brother left nothing behind, he continued. That his kindness, his warmth, his defiance, it all just ended. Vanished. Like he never existed. His voice roughened. And then I found them. Found you. And I realized that the best parts of Minho are still alive. Still laughing. Still asking if I want a dog. Amara's anger softened. Not disappeared, it still burned beneath the surface. But something else kindled alongside it. What happens tomorrow? She asked. We go to the estate. We face my father. And if he tries to take them? Minjae's hand moved unconsciously to the dragon coiling up his forearm. He won't. How can you be sure? Because he knows what I'm capable of. And he knows I mean exactly what I said. Amara stepped closer. Close enough to see the individual scales of the dragon tattoo. Close enough to notice the faint shadows beneath his eyes. You're not sleeping, she observed. I rarely do. The pain. He didn't answer. Minjae. The use of his name made him flinch. It's getting worse, he admitted finally. The doctors want to try a new treatment, but it requires time I don't have. Rest I can't afford. Amara reached up. Her hand hovered near his face. He went completely still. Like a wild creature unsure whether to flee or surrender. She cupped his jaw. His eyes closed. You're not alone, she said. Whatever happens tomorrow. Whatever your father threatens. You're not facing it alone. The next morning, Subin found Minjae asleep on the bakery floor. He had refused to leave. Had insisted on keeping watch through the night. But exhaustion had claimed him sometime around 4 a.m. The boy knelt beside him, studying the tattoos visible through his open collar. The dragon's head rested over Minjae's heart. Its eyes were closed. Peaceful. Like it was protecting him from within. Are you our uncle? Subin asked when Minjae's eyes finally opened. A moment of confusion. Then understanding. Yes, Minjae said slowly. Your father was my brother. The one who died. Yes. Subin processed this with unsettling calmness. Mom has a picture of him. She thinks we don't know, but we found it. Hidden in her room. Minjae sat up slowly. His chest ached. Everything ached. What did you think? He asked. When you found the picture? I thought. Subin's eyes grew distant. Thought he looked kind. And sad. Like he wanted to be somewhere else. He did. He wanted to be with you. Then why wasn't he? The question held no accusation. Only genuine confusion. Only the need to understand. Minjae searched for words. Sometimes, he said carefully, people try very hard to protect the ones they love. And sometimes that protection looks like distance. Looks like absence. Even when all they want is to be close. Is that what you're doing? Subin asked. Protecting us? I'm trying. The boy considered this. Then he did something unexpected. He leaned forward and wrapped his small arms around Minjae's neck. Thank you, he whispered. For trying. Later that evening, the Kong family estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured grounds outside Seoul. Traditional architecture blended with modern security. Guards in dark suits patrolled every entrance. Cameras tracked every angle. This was the seat of an empire, both legitimate and otherwise. This was where power lived. Amara gripped the children's hands as they walked toward the main house. Minjae walked ahead, his presence creating a path through the security personnel who parted like water before a blade. Mom, Seon whispered, this place is huge. I know, baby. Are we in trouble? No. We're just meeting family. The main doors opened. Chairman Kang Dae-young waited in the entrance hall. He looked smaller than he had at the school. Older. But his eyes remained sharp as broken glass. Welcome, he said. To your legacy. The study smelled of old leather and older money. Shelves lined with legal texts and family histories stretched toward a ceiling painted with traditional Korean scenes, dragons and tigers and waves that never crashed. Dae-young sat behind a desk that had witnessed 3 generations of dark negotiations. Minjae stood near the window. Amara sat in a chair designed to make visitors feel small. The children had been escorted to a playroom by staff who smiled with professional warmth. You understand, Dae-young began, that I have every legal right to pursue custody of my grandchildren. You have no rights, Amara said flatly. You didn't know they existed until weeks ago. Biology doesn't require awareness. Those children carry Kong blood. Kong heritage. They're entitled to the protections and privileges that heritage provides. Privileges. Amara's voice rose. Like growing up surrounded by criminals? Like learning that family means loyalty enforced through fear. Dae-young's expression didn't change. You have a very narrow view of our operations, Mississippi Park. The Kong family is responsible for hospitals, universities, housing developments across 3 countries. We employ thousands of people legitimately. And illegitimately? Thin smile. Business is business. Min-jae turned from the window. Tell her the real reason you want them, father. Dae-young's smile faded. Min-jae. Tell her about your legacy concerns. Tell her about the board meetings where you've complained that I show no interest in producing heirs. Tell her about your fear that the Kong line will die with me. Silence crackled between father and son. Amara looked between them, understanding dawning. You want my children, she said slowly, to replace the heirs he won't give you. Dae-young's jaw tightened. I want my grandchildren to know their heritage. To benefit from their birthright. To be educated in the ways of our family. You want soldiers, Min-jae countered. Successors you can mold because you failed to mold me. I made you what you are, Dae-young snapped. Everything you possess. The power, the respect, the fear your name commands, I gave you. And how do you repay me? By hiding my only grandchildren. By threatening to destroy everything I've built. By protecting innocent children from a man who sees love as weakness and family as property. The old man stood slowly. Despite his age, fury made him formidable. I could take them tomorrow. I have judges who owe me. Lawyers who serve at my pleasure. Your foreign mother with her bakery has no power to stop me. Amara stood too. Years of surviving alone. Years of building something from nothing. Years of protecting 3 lives against an indifferent world. All of it hardened in her voice. You could try, she said. And maybe you'd succeed. Maybe you'd drag this through courts for years and eventually win some technical custody. She stepped forward. Toward the man who controlled empires. Toward her own terror. But those children know who loves them. They know whose hands held them when they were sick. They know whose voice sang them to sleep. And no amount of money or power will make them forget. Dae-young studied her face. The fire there. The fierce maternal ferocity that couldn't be bought or intimidated. Something shifted in his ancient eyes. You love them, he said. Genuinely. More than my own life. And you would fight me, knowing what I am, knowing what I could do. Until my last breath. The old man turned to his son. This is the mother of your brother's children? This Nigerian woman who runs a bakery and speaks to me without fear. Min-jae nodded. Min-ho chose well. The words hung in the air like an unexpected gift. Dae-young returned to his chair. His shoulders seemed somehow smaller. I'm 73 years old, he said quietly. I've buried a son. I'm watching another die slowly. Min-jae flinched. Yes, his father continued. You thought I didn't know. That your secret doctors and hidden treatments escaped my notice. I've known about your condition for 18 months. Amara's head whipped toward Min-jae. His face had gone pale. The dragon tattoo stood stark against bloodless skin. Father. I haven't said anything because I hoped. Dae-young's voice roughened. I hoped time would give us answers. Hoped your pride would eventually let you ask for help. He looked suddenly old. Truly old. I've lost one son. I cannot bear to lose another. But I also cannot bear to watch my legacy die completely. Minutes later. Dae-young's proposal was unexpected. I won't seek custody, he said. The children will remain with their mother. She will continue to raise them as she sees fit. Amara waited for the conditions. In exchange they will spend time here. Learn about their heritage. Be educated in the responsibilities their blood carries. They're 7 years old, Amara protested. And they will remain children for years to come. I'm not asking to train soldiers. I'm asking to know my grandchildren before I die. He turned to Min-jae. And you will stop hiding your treatment. You will accept help. You will fight to live with the same ferocity you've shown in fighting me. Why? Because those children deserve an uncle who survives. Because your stubbornness will not be the legacy you leave them. Min-jae's hand pressed against his chest. The dragon tattoo curled around his heart like a protective cage. And if I refuse? Then I will watch you die knowing I offered help you were too proud to accept. The clock on the wall ticked. Seconds stretched into eternities. Finally Min-jae nodded. Fine. Fine, you'll accept treatment? Fine, I'll try. No promises. No guarantees. But I'll try. Dae-young's shoulders relaxed. Something that might have been relief crossed his weathered features. Then we have an agreement. He extended his hand to Amara. Welcome to the family, Mississippi Park. God help you. 2 months later. Spring had transformed Seoul into a watercolor painting. Cherry blossoms drifted through every street. The air smelled like flowers and possibility. At Sunrise and Flower, business had never been better. Word had spread, quietly, mysteriously, that the small bakery near Hanbit Elementary was now under the protection of powerful interests. Health inspections that once dragged for weeks now passed in hours. Suppliers who had previously demanded cash up front began offering generous credit terms. The building's landlord had suddenly reduced rent by 40%. Amara suspected Min Jae's involvement. She had no proof. Just the strange new ease of her life. And the way he refused to meet her eyes when she asked about it. He visited every day now. Sometimes for minutes. Sometimes for hours. The children had absorbed him into their orbit, gravitationally inevitable. Uncle Min Jae. Watch me do a cartwheel. Uncle Min Jae, will you help with my math homework? Uncle Min Jae, do you like strawberries? He answered each demand with patient gravity. The cartwheels received solemn evaluation. The math homework was corrected with precise instruction. The strawberries were consumed despite clear preference otherwise. Amara watched these interactions with a growing awareness she couldn't quite name. The way his severity softened around the children. The way his hands, marked with symbols of violence, moved with infinite care. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. One evening, the children had finally succumbed to sleep. Amara found Min Jae on the bakery's small back patio, watching the city lights through gaps in the surrounding buildings. She sat beside him. Their shoulders almost touched. The treatment is working, he said without preamble. I know. I can see it. The shadows beneath his eyes had lessened. His breathing came easier. He no longer pressed his hand against his chest every few minutes. The doctors say I might have more time than they originally estimated. How much more? Years. Possibly many years. If I continue responding to treatment. Amara's breath caught. She hadn't realized how much she'd been carrying until it started to lift. That's wonderful. Is it? She turned to face him. Why wouldn't it be? Min Jae's eyes held something complex. Something that had been building for months. Because I've spent so long preparing to die that I don't know how to plan for living. His voice dropped. And because living means wanting things I told myself I'd never have. The air between them changed. Charged. Electric. What things? Amara whispered. Min Jae's hand rose slowly. His fingers, dragon scales visible in the dim light, hovered near her face. Waiting for permission. She leaned into his palm. His eyes closed. This, he breathed. A family. Something that isn't duty or obligation or empire. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I told myself I was here for Minho. For the children. Because it was right. His forehead lowered to hers. I lied. I'm here because being near you is the first time in 34 years that I've felt like myself. Not the air. Not the weapon. Just Min Jae. Amara's hands found his chest. Felt his heart beating beneath the dragon toe. Strong. Steadier than before. I promised myself I wouldn't love again, she said. After Minho. I thought that door had closed forever. And now. Now you appear in my bakery looking for ghosts and find my children instead. Now you spend months proving that gentleness exists beneath the danger. Now you sleep on my floor because you're afraid to leave us unprotected. She looked up. Met his dark eyes. Now I think maybe that door was just waiting for the right person to knock. He kissed her. Swiftly. Carefully. Like she was precious and he was terrified of breaking something sacred. Her hands curled into his shirt. His arms wrapped around her like he was holding something he'd finally stopped running from. And in the small patio behind a bakery that smelled like bread and hope, two broken people began to heal together. 3 weeks later. Happiness has a way of attracting darkness. Like flame draws moths, joy calls forth those who would consume it. Kim Taehyun had been Minho's closest friend at university. They had shared idealistic dreams of using their privilege to help others. They had volunteered together. laughed together, planned futures that seemed infinitely possible. What Minho never knew was that Taehyun's idealism masked something uglier. Jealousy. Obsession. A hunger for everything the Kong family possessed. When Minho died, Taehyun had watched from a distance. Had seen the investigation that followed. Had noted the mysterious gaps in Minho's final year. Gaps that suggested hidden treasures. For 4 years he had searched quietly, patiently, until finally, through sources cultivated with care, he discovered what Kang Dae-young himself had found. A Nigerian woman. 3 identical children. A bakery near an elementary school. At sunrise in flower. Taehyun arrived on a Tuesday morning. He was handsome in a carefully constructed way. Friendly smile, fashionable clothes, charming manner. Everything about him was designed to disarm. Good morning. He beamed at Amar across the counter. I've heard amazing things about this bakery. Thank you. What can I get you? Whatever you recommend. I trust your judgment completely. He visited every day that week. Made small talk. Asked about the children with seemingly innocent curiosity. Complimented her strength in running a business alone. Min-jae noticed the new regular on day 3. Something in the man's posture. Something in the way his eyes tracked Amara's movements. Something that raised the hairs on the back of Min-jae's tattooed neck. Do you know him? He asked Amara that evening. He's just a customer. He looks at you like you're something he wants to own. Amar laughed. You're being paranoid. I'm being cautious. There's a difference. But the concern settled into Min-jae's chest alongside the pain that never fully disappeared. He set his security team to investigate. What they found made his blood run cold. Several days later. Kim Tae-hyun, Min-jae's security chief reported. Age 36. Son of a minor banking family. University friend of your brother. I remember him. They were close once. They had a falling out 6 months before your brother's death. We don't have details, but mutual friends describe it as explosive. Min-jae's jaw tightened. What's he doing in Seoul? Officially, running a boutique consulting firm. Unofficially, the security chief hesitated. He's been reaching out to your father's rivals. Testing alliances. Asking questions about the Kong family structure. Min-jae stood slowly. The dragon on his neck seemed to coil tighter. He's positioning himself. That's our assessment, sir. And he's specifically interested in information about Mr. Minho's surviving legacy. The children. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, Amara didn't notice the way Taehyun's questions had grown more specific. Didn't notice how he maneuvered conversations toward the children's schedule, their school, their routines. He was too busy being happy. Too busy watching Min-jae play with the children. Too busy learning what hope felt like after years without it. Subin noticed. The quiet boy observed everything. Mom, he said one evening, I don't like the new customer. Mr. Kim? Why not? His smile doesn't reach his eyes. And he asks too many questions. Amara dismissed the concern. Children often had irrational dislikes. But that night she mentioned it to Min-jae. His reaction was immediate. Keep the children close. Don't let them leave your sight. Min-jae, what? Trust me. Please. She saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. Real fear. Not for himself. For them. The following morning. Soo-yoon vanished. One moment she was walking through the school gates. The next she was simply gone. The playground was chaos. Teachers shouted. Security personnel swarmed. Parents gathered in terrified clusters. Amara stood at the center of it all, her world collapsing. Where is my daughter? Her voice shattered on the words. Sumin clung to her leg, crying. Subin stood frozen, his face pale as death. Min-jae arrived in minutes. His car hadn't fully stopped before he was running. Every line of his body radiated lethal intent. The dragon tattoo seemed to writhe as fury transformed his features. When? He demanded. 20 minutes ago. The cameras. Show me. The security footage revealed everything. A black van. A man in a hood. Soo-yoon looking up trustingly at someone who offered her something. Candy perhaps, or a message. Then hands. Then screaming. Then nothing. Min-jae watched the footage 3 times. Each viewing carved something darker into his expression. Zoom in. The man's hand. The image enlarged. There on the kidnapper's wrist, a tattoo. A small spider. The symbol of those who served the Kong family's greatest rival. They took my niece, Min-jae said quietly. To get to me. Amara turned to face him. Tears streamed down her face. What do we do? What do we do? Min-jae pulled out his phone. His voice when he spoke was death itself. Mobilize everyone. Every resource. Every contact. Every favor we've ever collected. He looked at Amara. At the shattered woman who had trusted him to protect her family. I will find her, he promised. I will bring her home. And I will make everyone responsible wish they had never been born. He reached for her face. Brushed away her tears with tattooed fingers. Trust me, he whispered. Please. One more time. And then Kang Min-jae, billionaire heir, feared mafia successor, dying man learning to live, walked into the darkness to wage war for a 7-year-old girl who had taught him that dragons could be gentle. Seoul had never felt darker. The city's neon glow pulsed against the night sky like a false heartbeat, casting everything in shades of electric blue and blood red. Somewhere beneath those lights, a 7-year-old girl was waiting. Alone. Calling for a mother who couldn't hear her. Min-jae had not slept. He stood in the operations room buried 3 stories beneath the Kong family tower. A space that didn't exist on any architectural plan. Screens covered every wall. Data streams flickered. Operators worked in tense silence, tracking vehicles, intercepting communications, mapping the movements of every known associate of the rival syndicate. His coat was gone. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows. The full length of the dragon tattoo was exposed, from his knuckles to his shoulder, disappearing beneath the fabric that covered his chest. Every person in the room could see it. Every person understood what it meant. The ear had activated. The dragon was hunting. Report, Min-jae said. His voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. His chief of security stepped forward. The van was traced to a warehouse district in Incheon. Abandoned upon arrival. No fingerprints. Professional operation. The spider tattoo on the kidnapper's wrist. Confirmed. The symbol belongs to the Yoon Syndicate. They've been probing our operations for months. Who authorized this? We believe it was Yoon Sung-ji himself. But there's a complication. Min-jae's eyes narrowed. Speak. Kim Tae-hyun has been in contact with the Yoon family for the past 6 weeks. Our surveillance intercepted encrypted communications between his phone and Yoon's second-in-command. The silence that followed was absolute. Every operator stopped typing. Every breath held. Min-jae's hand curled into a fist. The dragon's claws pressed white against his knuckles. Tae-hyun, he murmured. My brother's friend. Former friend, sir. We believe the falling out between them was related to Tae-hyun discovering your brother's relationship with Mississippi Park. He may have attempted to report it to your father at the time. Your brother cut ties to protect her. Min-jae closed his eyes. Even dead, Min-ho was still protecting the woman he loved. Even dead, his choices rippled forward. Find Tae-hyun, Min-jae said. Quietly. Don't let him know we're coming. And the girl. Min-jae opened his eyes. The coldness there would have frozen steel. We find her first. Everything else is secondary. Meanwhile, Amara sat on the floor of the bakery's kitchen. The lights were off. The ovens were cold. She held Suyun's favorite stuffed rabbit against her chest and rocked slowly, silently back and forth. Sumin had cried himself to sleep on the small cot in the back room. His face was swollen and blotched, his small fists still clenched even in unconsciousness. Subin sat beside his mother. He hadn't cried. Not once. His eyes held something that looked far too old for 7 years. She's alive, he said quietly. Amar looked at him. I can feel it, Subin continued. We're triplets. We share things. Feelings. Sometimes thoughts. He placed his small hand on his chest. She's scared. But she's alive. And she's angry. Despite everything, the ghost of a smile crossed Amara's lips. Seun was always angry when she was scared. She fought fear with fury. Just like her mother. Uncle Min-jae will find her, Subin said with absolute certainty. How do you know? Because dragons always protect their treasure. Several hours later. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m. An intercepted phone call between 2 low-level Yoon operatives revealed a location. a converted shipping facility on the outskirts of Gimpo. Min-jae assembled his team in 12 minutes. 16 men. All loyal to the Kong family by blood or bond. All trained for exactly this kind of operation. Before departing, Min-jae made one call. Amara. Did you find her? We have a location. I'm going now. A shattered breath on the other end. Bring her home, Min-jae. Please. Bring my baby home. He pressed his phone against his forehead. His chest ached. Not the familiar cardiac pain, something deeper. Something that lived in the space between love and terror. I will, he said. I promise. He hung up, pressed his palm flat against the dragon over his heart, and walked into the night. The shipping facility sat at the end of a dead-end road surrounded by industrial wasteland. Rusted containers formed walls. Broken floodlights cast intermittent pools of yellow. Guards patrolled in pairs. Armed. Alert. Expecting retaliation. Min-jae studied the layout from 300 meters away. Night vision displays painted everything in shades of ghostly green. 6 exterior guards, his team leader reported. 2 entry points. Motion sensors along the eastern fence. Internal layout unknown. Heat signatures. 12 confirmed. 1 significantly smaller than the others. Upper level northeast corner. Northeast corner. 12 adults between him and his niece. Min-jae had faced worse odds. Disable the sensors. Take the exterior guard simultaneously. Non-lethal if possible. Pause. And if not possible, sir? Min-jae's jaw tightened. The red spider behind his ear seemed to pulse in the darkness. Then they should have chosen a different profession. The operation lasted 11 minutes. Efficient. Precise. Surgical. Min-jae moved through the facility like smoke. Silent, inevitable, impossible to contain. He cleared rooms with a calm that terrified even his own men. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Every action calculated 3 steps ahead. 2 guards attempted to block the stairwell to the upper level. They lasted 4 seconds. Min-jae stepped over them without looking down. The door to the northeast room was locked from outside. A single guard stood before it. Young. Nervous. The gun in his hands trembled. Move, Min-jae said. The guard looked at the tattoos. Looked at the eyes that held no mercy and no bluff. He dropped the gun and ran. Min-jae broke the lock with a single strike. The door swung open. And there, curled in the corner of a bare concrete room, clutching a torn school blazer around her shoulders, was Soo-yoon. Her eyes were red. Her uniform was dirty. But she was alive. Whole. Furious. I knew you would come, she shouted, leaping to her feet. I told them. I said my uncle would come and he would be so mad and they would be so sorry. Min-jae knelt. The dragon stretched across his open arms. Soo-yoon threw herself against his chest and held on with the desperate strength of a child who had spent 20 hours being brave. His arms closed around her. Gently. So carefully. Like she was made of glass and starlight. I'm here, he whispered. I'm here. You're safe. They were mean, she said into his collar. And the food was terrible. Despite everything, despite the violence behind him, the pain in his chest, the war still ahead, Min-jae almost smiled. Let's take you home. 40 minutes later. The bakery door burst open. Soo-yoon ran inside. The sound Amar made was not entirely human. It was grief and relief and rage and love compressed into a single cry that shattered the silence of the empty bakery. She caught her daughter mid-stride and pulled her so close that the boundaries between them seemed to dissolve. My baby. My baby. My baby. She said it again and again, rocking, crying, pressing kisses against every inch of her daughter's face. Soo-min woke and tumbled from the back room, throwing himself into the pile of arms and tears. Soo-bin walked forward slowly. He placed his hand on his sister's back. Closed his eyes. I told you, he said quietly. I told you she was alive. Min-jae stood in the doorway. His knuckles were bruised. His shirt was torn at the collar, revealing the dragon's head above his heart. Blood that wasn't his stained his sleeves. Amar looked up at him. Their eyes met across the room. And everything, every doubt, every fear, every wall she had built against love, crumbled to dust. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded once. then turned away before she could see his hand press against his chest. Before she could see the pain that blazed through him like fire. Before she could know that the exertion had cost him more than he could afford. 2 days later, Kim Taehyun was found in a luxury hotel in Gangnam. He was packing. Hastily. Plane tickets to Singapore lay on the bedside table. Min-jae arrived with no announcement. The hotel door opened. Taehyun turned. And the color drained from his face like water from a broken vessel. Min-jae. Sit down. 2 words. No raise in volume. No visible threat. But Taehyun sat as if his legs had been cut from beneath him. Min-jae remained standing. The morning light through the hotel window caught the full length of his tattoo. Dragon and tiger intertwined, peonies blooming between scales and claws, Korean calligraphy flowing down his forearm like a river of promises and warnings. You were my brother's friend, Min-jae said quietly. Yes. We were close. You discovered his relationship with Amara. You tried to expose her to our father. Min-ho cut you out to protect her. Taehyun's mouth opened. Closed. And 4 years later you found her yourself. You cultivated a relationship with the Yoon Syndicate. You traded information about my brother's children for... what? Taehyun's composure shattered. You don't understand. Min-ho had everything. The name, the legacy, the freedom to walk away from all of it. And what did I have? A father drowning in debt. A family name worth nothing. I deserved a piece of what the Kangs have. So you sold a child. I didn't know they would take her. I only told them about the children's existence. I thought they would use the information as leverage. For negotiations. Business. Min-jae stepped closer. 1 step. That was all it took. Taehyun pressed back into the chair as if trying to disappear through it. You thought, Min-jae repeated slowly, that telling violent criminals about 3 7-year-old children would result in polite business negotiations. You nearly got my niece killed. Min-jae, please. You betrayed my brother's memory. The red spider behind Min-jae's ear caught the light as he leaned forward. 8 tiny crimson legs seemed to move. Patient. Calculating. Waiting. Here is what happens now, Min-jae said, his voice barely above a whisper. You will leave South Korea tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. You will never return. You will never speak the name Kong. You will never think about those children. And if I refuse? Min-jae's hand landed on Taehyun's shoulder. Almost friendly. The dragon's claws pressed against the smaller man's collarbone. You won't refuse, Min-jae said softly. Because you know what the spider means. You know what I'm capable of. And you know that the only reason you're still breathing is because my brother once called you friend. He released his grip. Don't test that mercy twice. Later that evening, Kim Taehyun boarded a flight to Singapore. He did not return. The Yoon Syndicate received a different message. Delivered not in words but in consequences. 3 key business operations dismantled overnight. 2 financial channels frozen. A personal message to Yoon Sung-ji that arrived as a single photograph. His own home, captured from an angle that proved someone had been close enough to touch the door. No further action was required. The message was understood. The Kong dragon had spoken. The world listened. 3 weeks after the rescue, Seon woke screaming for the 4th night in a row. Amara rushed to her bedside, gathering her daughter into her arms. It's okay, baby. You're safe. You're home. They're coming back. They're going to take me again. No one is taking you. No one. I'm here. But the nightmares persisted. Seon, once the bravest of the 3, now flinched at loud sounds. She refused to walk to school without holding someone's hand. She slept with every light in the room on. Amara watched her daughter's suffering with a helplessness that carved pieces from her soul. She had survived so much. Built so much. Protected so fiercely. And still the world had found a way to hurt her child. One afternoon, Min-jae arrived at the bakery carrying a large flat box. The children gathered around with cautious curiosity. What is it? Sumin asked. Open it. Inside was a painting. A magnificent dragon rendered in sweeping ink strokes. But this dragon was different from the one on Min-jae's skin. This dragon was surrounded by 3 small phoenixes, each one unique, each one burning with its own brilliant flame. In Korean mythology, Min-jae said, kneeling to the children's level, the dragon is strong. But the phoenix is stronger. Suyun edged closer, drawn despite her anxiety. Why? Because the dragon fights. But the phoenix survives. No matter what happens, fire, darkness, fear, the phoenix always rises. Always comes back. Always burns brighter than before. He pointed to the 3 small phoenixes in the painting. These are you. All 3 of you. And no dragon, not even me, could ever be as brave as a phoenix. Suyun stared at the painting. Something shifted in her young face. The fear didn't disappear. But something else appeared alongside it. Recognition. The recognition that she had been through fire. And she was still here. Still burning. Can I hang it in my room? She whispered. It was made for your room. She reached up and touched the dragon's painted face. It looks like you, she said. Does it? Yeah. Scary on the outside. She traced a painted claw. But nice underneath. That night, Suyun slept through until morning for the first time in 3 weeks. The painting hung above her bed. 3 phoenixes rising. 1 dragon watching over them. Amara found Min-jae on the patio. The night air was cool. Stars struggled against the city light. Where did you get that painting? She asked. I commissioned it. From an artist who specializes in traditional Korean mythology. It's beautiful. It's true. She sat beside him. Closer than usual. Her shoulder pressed against his arm. You're good with them, she said softly. I'm learning. You're succeeding. Silence wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. Comfortable now. Necessary. Min-jae. How are you feeling? Honestly. He was quiet for a long time. His hand moved to his chest, the automatic gesture she had learned to watch for. Better, he said finally. The new treatment is working. My doctors are cautiously optimistic. Cautiously. They're doctors. They're cautious about everything. Amara took his hand. Drew it away from his chest. Held it between both of hers. The dragon's tail curled around their intertwined fingers. I need you to stay, she said. Her voice trembled. Just slightly. Just enough. I know I said I didn't need anyone. I know I built walls and kept the world out and raised 3 children alone because I believed that was the only way to survive. She pressed his hand against her cheek. But I can't lose someone else I love. I can't do it again. Min-jae's breath stopped. Someone you love? She looked up at him. Eyes bright with unshed tears. Don't make me say it twice. He pulled her close. His arms wrapped around her completely, protective, encompassing, absolute. His lips brushed her temple. I will fight, he whispered into her hair. Every treatment. Every procedure. Every day I have left I will fight for more. For you. For them. Promise me. I promise. And in the quiet darkness behind a bakery that smelled like bread and tomorrow, 2 people who had learned to survive alone chose to continue together. 1 month later, Chairman Kang Deyoung arrived at Sunrise and Flower without bodyguards. No entourage. No intimidation. Just an old man with a golden cane and eyes that had witnessed empires rise and fall. Amara nearly dropped a tray of croissants. Chairman Kang. Please. Call me Deyoung. Or grandfather if you can stomach it. He sat at the corner table, Min-jae's table, Amara realized, and accepted coffee with a nod. I came to apologize, he said. Amara set down the coffee and waited. I approached your children like assets. Like chess pieces to be positioned on a board I designed. That was wrong. The words settled between them. Heavy with the weight of a man who rarely admitted fault. The kidnapping. His weathered hands trembled slightly around the cup. When Min-jae told me what happened, I felt something I haven't felt in decades. What? Helplessness. His voice cracked. My granddaughter, a child I barely knew, was taken because of my world. Because of the empire I built. Because the enemies I created saw her as a target. He looked up. His ancient eyes glistened. I buried my son believing I had lost everything of him. And then I discovered 3 miracles living above a bakery. And my first instinct was to control them. To own them. Because that's all I know. Amara sat across from him. Studied this man who had terrorized her. Saw the grief beneath the power. The loneliness beneath the authority. They need a grandfather, she said carefully. Not a chairman. Not a strategist. A grandfather. Someone who reads bedtime stories and spoils them with sweets and tells them about their father. Dae-young's composure fractured. A single tear traced the deep lines of his face. I don't know how to be that, he admitted. I was never that for my own sons. Then learn. The way your son is learning. Min-jae. He sleeps on my bakery floor. He helps with math homework. He eats strawberries even though he hates them because Seun puts them on his plate. A sound escaped the old man, half laugh, half sob. Minho would have loved to see that. His terrifying older brother eating strawberries for a child. Minho would have loved many things, Amara said softly. He would have loved watching his children grow. Watching his brother learn to be gentle. Watching his father learn to be human. Dae-young reached across the table. His hand, wrinkled, spotted with age, stripped of its usual rings of authority, lay palm up. Vulnerable. Will you teach me, he asked, how to be what they need? Amara placed her hand in his. Come for dinner on Sunday, she said. And bring something sweet. Sumin has a terrible sweet tooth. That Sunday, Dae-young arrived with enough pastries to feed the entire neighborhood. Also 3 hand-carved wooden dragons. Also a photo album filled with images of Minho as a child. The children studied the photographs with wide eyes. He looks like us, Sumin exclaimed. He looks like Subin, Seun corrected. Same serious face. He was a serious boy, Dae-young said, settling into the kitchen chair with a comfort that surprised everyone including himself. Always thinking. Always watching. Always worried about everyone else. Subin held a photograph of Minho at age 7. Same age. Same face. Same knowing eyes. Was he brave? Subin asked quietly. The bravest person I ever knew, Dae-young said. Braver than me certainly. I used power to face the world. Your father used kindness. And kindness requires far more courage. Amara watched from the kitchen doorway. Beside her, Min-jae leaned against the frame. Their shoulders touched. Your father is crying, Amara murmured. I know. In front of the children. I know. I didn't think he could. Min-jae watched the old man wipe his eyes while Seun climbed into his lap without permission. Neither did I, he said quietly. Neither did I. 6 weeks later. Hanbit International Elementary School's annual cultural festival was the social event of the season. Parents, dignitaries and donors filled the decorated gymnasium. Children performed traditional dances, modern songs and theatrical presentations. Suyun was performing a traditional Korean fan dance. Sumin was presenting a science project on volcanic eruptions. Subin was reading an original poem. Amara arrived early to help with decorations. She wore a flowing dress that blended Nigerian textile patterns with Korean tailoring, a gift from Mrs. Kim who had become less a neighbor and more a grandmother in her own right. Min-jae arrived precisely at the event's start time. He wore a tailored black suit. Dark overcoat despite the warm gymnasium. The dragon tattoo peeked above his collar, scales catching the fluorescent light. Beside him, Chairman Kang Dae-young walked with his golden cane. He had dressed carefully for the occasion. A grandfather attending his grandchildren's school festival. Normal. Ordinary. Extraordinary. The whispers started immediately. Is that the Kang Dae-young? The corporate chairman? And his son, the one with the tattoos? Why are they at an elementary school festival? Min-jae ignored the whispers with practiced ease. His attention was fixed on the small stage where Suyun was preparing for her dance. She wore a traditional hanbok in brilliant red and gold. She looked terrified. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Found Min-jae. He gave her a single nod. The barest gesture. But it carried everything. You are a phoenix. You rise. Always. Suyun straightened. The fear didn't disappear. But she lifted her fans. And she danced. Beautifully. Imperfectly. Bravely. When she finished, the applause was generous. But one sound rose above it all. Min-jae clapping. Fully. Deliberately. Each clap a declaration that echoed through the gymnasium. I see you. I'm proud of you. You are magnificent. Suyun beamed so brightly she could have lit the room without electricity. Later. Sumin's volcano erupted spectacularly, covering the judges' table in a baking soda lava flow that drew equal parts horror and delight. Min-jae helped clean the mess without being asked. On his knees. in a suit that cost more than most cars. Wiping orange foam from the floor while Sumin apologized profusely and Daeyoung laughed until he coughed. Then came Subin's poem. The quiet boy walked to the microphone. The gymnasium fell silent. He unfolded a single piece of paper. My father was a man I never met, he read. But I know him through the stories people tell. Through a photograph my mother thinks is hidden. Through the shape of my own face in the mirror. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. He loved my mother. I know this because I exist. He was kind. I know this because kindness runs in my blood. He was brave. I know this because he tried to protect us. Even when protecting meant letting go. Min-jae's jaw clenched. His hand pressed against his chest. Not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming force of emotion threatening to break through every wall he had ever built. I have a family now that I didn't have before. An uncle who sleeps on our floor. A grandfather who brings too many pastries. A mother who makes everything possible. Subin looked up from his paper. His eyes found Min-jae in the crowd. Family isn't blood. Family isn't names. Family is who stays when staying is hard. Family is who fights when fighting is scary. Family is who chooses you. And again. And again. The gymnasium was silent. Then it erupted. Applause. Tears. Standing ovations from parents who had come for entertainment and received something far more profound. Daeyoung wept openly. He didn't try to hide it. Didn't care who saw. He had spent 73 years building walls against vulnerability. A 7-year-old with his dead son's face demolished them in 45 seconds. Amara found Min-jae's hand in the crowd. She held it so tightly the dragon tattoo pressed white against her palm. He held her back with equal force. Neither spoke. Some moments existed beyond language. That night, the children were asleep, exhausted from their triumphs. Amara and Min-jae sat together in the darkened bakery. The only light came from the street outside, casting amber patterns across the floor. Your brother would be proud, Amara said. Of who they're becoming. He would be proud of you. She shook her head. I almost broke after the kidnapping. I almost took them and ran. Back to Nigeria. Back to somewhere your world couldn't reach. Why didn't you? He turned to him. In the dim light her eyes held galaxies. Because of you. Min-jae's breath caught. When you brought Seun back. When you carried her through that door like she was the most precious thing in the universe. I understood something. What? That running would have meant leaving you behind. And I realized that was no longer something I was willing to do. He stared at her. This woman who had built a life from wreckage. Who had raised 3 children alone in a foreign country. Who had faced a mafia patriarch without flinching. Who had loved his brother and found room in her heart for his damaged, dangerous, dying older sibling. I love you, he said. The words emerged raw. Unpolished. Nothing like the careful, measured speech he used for everything else. I love you in a way I didn't know I was capable of. Not because of Minho. Not because of the children. Not because of guilt or obligation or legacy. He took her face in his hands. The dragon cradled her jaw. I love you because you taught me that I'm more than what my father made me. More than the tattoos. More than the empire. More than the diagnosis. His forehead touched hers. You taught me that I deserve to live. And I intend to spend every remaining day of my life proving worthy of that lesson. Amara's tears fell against his tattooed hands. You infuriating man, she whispered. Walking into my bakery with your cold eyes and your dragon tattoos and your impossible silence. Amara. I was fine. I was surviving. I had my children and my bread and my grief and I was fine. I know. And then you had to go and make me feel safe. Make me feel seen. Make me fall in love with you while I was too busy being terrified to notice. She kissed him. Not softly this time. Not carefully, with the fierce, consuming passion of a woman who had spent years denying herself the right to want. He responded with equal intensity, pulling her close, holding her like she was gravity, and without her he would simply float away into nothing. When they finally separated, breathless, trembling, transformed. Marry me, he said. You're proposing in a dark bakery at midnight? I'm proposing in the place where I found my family. Where could be more appropriate? Mar laughed. Real laugh. Full and warm and alive. You don't even have a ring. Min-jae reached into his coat pocket. Produced a small velvet box. Inside, a ring unlike anything she had ever seen. A band of black platinum, engraved with 3 tiny phoenixes. In the center, a single stone that caught even the dim streetlight and fractured it into 1,000 brilliant points. "You planned this," she accused. "I've been carrying this ring for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I was waiting for the right moment. And midnight in a closed bakery is the right moment?" He smiled. Really smiled. For the first time in her memory, perhaps for the first time in his life, Kang Min-jae smiled without reservation. Without control. Without the careful architecture of restraint. Just joy. Pure and startling and devastating. "Every moment with you is the right moment," he said. She held out her hand. He slid the ring onto her finger. The phoenixes gleamed. The dragon on his hand seemed to bow toward them. "Yes," Amara whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times. Across every continent. In every language I know and several I don't." He pulled her close again. Held her against the heartbeat that had been failing. That was now, against every medical prediction, growing stronger. As if love itself were medicine. As if purpose were a cure. 2 months later. The wedding took place at the Kang family estate. But it looked nothing like the cold, controlled environment Amara had first encountered. The grounds had been transformed. Cherry blossoms were in full bloom. Lanterns hung from every branch, Korean paper lanterns alongside Nigerian-inspired woven lights in brilliant oranges and deep purples. The aisle was lined with peonies, the same flower that bloomed within Min-jae's tattoo. 300 guests attended. Half from the Kang family's extensive network. Half from the community Amara had built. Neighbors, customers, fellow parents from Hanbit Elementary, Mrs. Kim in the front row crying before the ceremony even began. Amara's gown was a masterwork. Nigerian Osso oak fabric in ivory and gold, tailored with Korean silhouette. A fusion of 2 cultures, 2 histories, 2 ways of loving. Her mother had flown in from Lagos. Her sisters stood beside her. The Adeyemi women, proud and luminous, claiming space in a world that had once tried to erase them. Min-jae waited at the altar. Black suit. No overcoat for once. The dragon tattoo visible from collar to knuckles. Scales and waves and flowers and the crimson spider behind his ear, all on display. Not hidden. Not apologized for. Claimed. Beside him his father stood as his witness. Daeung leaned on his golden cane with both hands. His eyes were already wet. The children served as ring bearers. All 3 because choosing one was deemed completely unfair by Soo-yoon and logistically impractical by Soo-bin. They walked down the aisle in matching traditional Korean hanbok, each carrying a small silk pillow. When Amara appeared, the crowd stood. But Min-jae saw only her. Everything else, the flowers, the guests, the empire, the past, dissolved. Just her. Walking toward him. Choosing him. The ceremony blended traditions. Korean vows spoken over clasped hands. Nigerian blessings sung by Amara's mother in Yoruba. A libation poured for the ancestors who watched from beyond. A moment of silence for Kang Min-ho, whose love had started everything. "Do you take this woman?" the officiant asked. "I have taken her from the moment I walked into her bakery," Min-jae said. "Everything since then has just been catching up." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even Dae-young smiled. "And do you take this man?" Amara looked at Min-jae. At the dragon. At the cold eyes that had learned to be warm. At the hands that had been weapons and become shelter. "I take him," she said. "All of him. The silence and the storm. The dragon and the man beneath it." She touched the tattoo at his wrist. Every scale. Every scar. Every heartbeat. He kissed her before the officiant gave permission. No one objected. The reception was legendary. Korean barbecue alongside Nigerian jollof rice. K-pop mixed with Afrobeats. Soo-yoon convinced 3 corporate executives to learn a traditional Yoruba dance. Soo-min accidentally knocked over a champagne tower, mercifully non-alcoholic at his station. Soo-bin was found in the garden at midnight, reading his poem to a photograph of Min-ho that someone had placed among the memorial flowers. Dae-young danced. Nobody believed it. He danced with Amara's mother to a song neither of them understood, both laughing at the absurdity and beauty of 2 old people from different worlds finding joy in the same rhythm. Min-jae danced with each child, lifting them in his arms. spinning them until they shrieked with laughter. The dragon tattoo moving with his body like it too was celebrating. Like it had been waiting his entire life for this permission to be joyful. 1 year later, the bakery had expanded. A second location opened in Gangnam, funded by the Kong Family Trust but managed entirely by Amara. "I don't want your empire," she had told Min-jae and Dae-young clearly. "I want my business. My work. My hands in the dough." They had agreed. Wisely. The children thrived. Soo-yoon had taken up taekwondo, channeling her fiery energy into disciplined movement. Soo-min had discovered a passion for marine biology, filling his room with aquariums and fact sheets about deep-sea creatures. Soo-bin was writing stories. Quiet, beautiful stories about dragons and phoenixes and families that found each other across oceans. Min-jae's health continued to improve. The experimental treatment had exceeded every expectation. His doctors, no longer cautiously optimistic, had used the word remission for the first time during his last appointment. Remission, Min-jae had repeated as if the word were in a foreign language. "Your heart is responding. The degeneration has slowed dramatically. Possibly halted. Possibly. We need more time to be certain. But the trajectory is remarkable." He had driven to the bakery immediately. Had walked through the door. Had found Amara covered in flour, arguing with the delivery driver about the quality of his butter. He had pulled her close without explanation. Held her. Pressed his face into her hair. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. "Min-jae, what?" "Remission," he whispered. He went still. Then she started to shake. Not with fear. With relief so profound it registered as seismic activity. "Say it again." "Remission." "Again." "Remission." "Possibly. The doctors need more time." She pulled back. Looked at his face. Searched for the truth. Found it. "You're staying," she breathed. "You're actually staying." "I'm actually staying." She hit his chest with a flour-covered fist. Then kissed him. Then hit him again. "You infuriating, terrifying, beautiful man. You are never allowed to die. Do you understand me? I forbid it." Noted. "I'm serious." "I know. That's why I agreed." Later that evening, the family gathered for dinner at the estate. Dae-young presided over the head of the table with the satisfied air of a man who had finally gotten everything he wanted, though not in any form he had expected. Amara's mother, who had extended her visit indefinitely, served jollof rice alongside the Korean dishes with the authority of a woman who believed good food could solve most problems. He was not entirely wrong. The children dominated the conversation. "Grandfather, did you know that octopi have 3 hearts?" "No, Sumin, I did not." "That's 2 more than Uncle Min-jae. Your uncle is fortunate to have even one the way he abuses it." "He's not abusing it anymore. Mom won't let him." Amara and Min-jae exchanged glances across the table. His hand found hers beneath the tablecloth. The dragon tattoo curled against her palm. Familiar now. Beloved. After dinner, Min-jae stood on the estate's terrace, watching the children chase fireflies across the manicured lawn. Amara joined him. "You're doing it again," she said. "Doing what?" "Watching them like they might disappear." He was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I remember the bakery. The first morning. How I stood in the doorway and the entire world rearranged itself. You looked terrifying. I was terrified. You. Terrified. Of everything. Of them. Of you. Of the possibility that I had found something I would inevitably lose." Seun shrieked with laughter as a firefly landed on her nose. Sumin attempted to catch one in a jar. Subin stood perfectly still, letting the lights come to him. "You haven't lost us," Amara said. "You won't." "I know." "Do you? Really?" He looked at her. The cold eyes that had first frightened her now held warmth enough to melt steel. "I know," he said, "because every morning I wake up beside you and the dragon on my chest is still breathing. And the children are arguing about breakfast. And your mother is somehow already in the kitchen making noise." Mar laughed. "And my father is calling to ask about their grades, which he knows are excellent because he secretly checks with their teachers every week." "He does not." "He absolutely does." She leaned against him. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The dragon and the woman. The silence and the warmth. The empire and the bakery. Impossible things made inevitable by love. Min-jae. Are you happy? The question should have been simple. But for a man who had spent 34 years believing happiness was weakness, who had been raised as a weapon, who had been dying in silence, who had found salvation in a bakery doorway, it was the most complex question anyone had ever asked him. He watched his family. His nieces and nephew. His wife. His father, visible through the window, losing spectacularly at a board game against Amara's mother. He felt his heart beating, strong, steady, miraculous. Felt the dragon tattoo rising and falling with each breath. Felt the warm weight of the woman beside him. Felt the future stretching ahead, not as a sentence but as a gift. Yes, he said. Simple. Certain. Absolute. Yes. I'm happy. 5 years later. The bakery opened at 6 a.m. It had always opened at 6 a.m. Some things were sacred. Amara moved through the kitchen with the practiced grace of a woman who had found her calling in flour and fire. The bread was rising. The coffee was brewing. The world was waking up. The door chimed. 3 teenagers walked in. Not identical anymore, not quite. Adolescence had begun to differentiate them, pulling each toward their own unique expression of the shared face they carried. Soo-yoon, 12 now, tall and fierce, wearing her taekwondo jacket over her school uniform because she refused to carry it separately. Mom, I need extra bread today. My tournament team is eating everything. Soo-min, already as tall as his sister despite being born 3 minutes later, his school bag bulging with marine biology textbooks. Mom, can I get a 4th aquarium? The seahorses need their own space. No. But. No. Soo-bin, quiet as ever, carrying a leather journal filled with his latest stories. He didn't ask for anything. He simply kissed his mother's cheek and took his usual seat by the window. The door chimed again. Min-jae walked in. 40 years old now. Silver threaded through his black hair at the temples. The dragon tattoo remained, unchanged, undiminished, a permanent testament to the man he had been and the man he had become. The red spider behind his ear still watched. Patient. Eternal. He carried a small child on his hip. A toddler with Amara's deep brown skin and Min-jae's sharp jawline. Their daughter. 2 years old. Named Minho. After the uncle she would never meet but would always know. Bread, little Minho announced, reaching for the display case. What do we say? Min-jae prompted. Bread please. Better. Amara laughed and handed her daughter a small roll. Her eyes met Min-jae's. The same eyes that had terrified her in this exact spot 7 years ago. Now they held only love. Quiet. Certain. He leaned across the counter. Kissed her. The dragon on his hand brushed her jaw. Good morning, he murmured. Good morning. Outside Seoul stirred to life. Cars hummed. Birds sang. The morning sun caught the bakery sign, sunrise and flower, and set it glowing. Inside a family sat together. Imperfect. Complicated. Forged from grief and danger and impossible odds. Held together by bread and stubbornness and the fierce, quiet, unbreakable choice to love. The dragon protected. The phoenixes rose. The spider watched. And the bread. The bread was always warm. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And remember, family isn't who you're born to. Family is who you choose. And again. And again.